you so much.
Okay, so hi everyone again. Nice to be here. I will share my screen now. You please let me know if you can see my screen properly. Maybe let me also move this a bit, up. Why cannot see my pointer? This is really strange. Well, I will keep it here. So, as mentioned, I'm Gianpaolo, and today I will walk you through a bit, on the reasoning why I've been starting to work with AI, giving a bit of an hint on my background and why I'm, looking at technology and how this can be embedded in our life, especially again with the focus on AI, and which has been more all the process behind that, right? All the reasoning. So instead of really deep diving into the theory, is more, I think, showing, a lot of visual, a lot of reasoning, and walking into the thinking. So as mentioned, I work since 15 years in digital design with focus on digital experiences and intersection between products, so brand and their products. In my career, I had the opportunity to work for many, many companies, agencies, and clients. Here I'm showing something that was developed with RGA. Was like an e-commerce website for a brand called Volleyback. They were basically designing clothes for the apocalypse. So there is a lot, in terms of storytelling. And what we were doing is like always pushing the boundaries of how an experience can feel innovative. So as you can see here, there are, different layers. Each of those layers is providing a gateway to the products. So how we can enhance storytelling and providing, let me say, a combination of different information that are around the product, right? To better experience those. I also worked for Puma Innovation with a company, an agency in Italy called Innovation by Design. So in these regards, we were more instead looking at how we could enhance the brand experience when it comes to tailored application. So they were basically, creating an exhibition for sustainable fashion. And what they were doing is partnering with some small studios and realities to basically create a new frontier for sustainable garment. So I think what is interesting here is seeing how the overall design approach when it comes to the garment of those, realities were translated and were informing the brand appearance. So you can see, the pattern in the background. It was basically the skeleton made with 3D prototyping using cellulose, that is, a natural fiber. And as well on top, those shades.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think you're talking about an image that we are not seeing, I believe. We are still seeing the green screen, the green first page, I think.
Well, that's really strange because I'm sharing the screen. Maybe, can you see it now?
Yes, I can see it now.
So that's strange. Let me try
It's
back.
probably
Full screen.
because of the like when you full
Check
page.
now. Please check now if it works.
I am currently seeing the one with the Puma, I think, logo.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So you missed this one.
Yes.
Well, I'm really sorry for that. So that's
Yeah.
what I was speaking before about, the different layers and this e-commerce. So as you can see, you have different, layers. You could access different entry point of the brand storytelling that were basically, connecting information about the product and giving to the user the opportunity to experience products differently. And I was mentioning, in Puma and working with Puma with Innovation by Design, it was more around the creation of this brand application. So how, the branding could change according to the context. And in this case, when, highlighting this partnership with those small realities, the patterns in the background, as I was saying, are, resembling the skeleton of this garment that were created using cellulose. And those shades were inspired by the usage of bacteria used to dye colors. So as you can see here, right, they were called living color. They were basically using the petri dish and growing bacteria to be able to dye the fabric that they were used ultimately to shape those products, right? the product were fully sustainable. So after one-time usage, they were basically fading away. And the whole concept was exactly about design to fade, right? So something that is so fast that is not delivering any footprint. I also worked back in the days for Google, shaping the new Google account. Obviously, all those projects are done in conjunction with teams and those realities are not something done just by me, obviously. And this was really interesting because after GDPR privacy regularization, we're basically shaping for the first time also material design in the context of web. And so how the whole, design structure and system will define its own application within the web experience and the web mobile. Also worked for Nokia Maps back in the days, so how we could fulfill the user needs of going from A to B, and now, all the visual language and the whole transition from Nokia to here as a brand would have take place, in the definition of this new, vibrant, pure, and beautiful essential brand definition. As you can see from the map, from the unique approach of the creation of, the UI element like the pins, how they are basically changing their own shape when interacting with them and they become flags and so on. Also with RJ in London, this was like a recent project of a few years ago. I was working with them, defining a new opportunity for storytelling in the context of, digital experiencing for visually impaired people. So how, all the limitation we have to design for those people were, taken in consideration to shape this fully accessible experience when it comes to the opportunity you have to reduce motion, to enhance color contrast, to experience, even ambient sound, to basically be more immersed within the story itself. Or ultimately, all of this show reel I was showing you is just to frame a bit where I'm coming from, right? I'm coming from this domain. I'm coming from a user experience and interaction design domain in which interaction design before was such a big umbrella of different, fields from visual design, interaction design, human-computer interface, user experience, and so on. And so, as you can imagine, I'm really interested in seeing how technology it's how to say approaching our life, how it's dictating the way we shape new scenarios, and how we as a designer should find the right balance and integration of those technologies in our life. So when AI, generative AI became mass market, and you can see here Midjourney, I think you all are familiar with that. Everyone was so amazed about the wonders and opportunity that this tool could create, like and deliver. But there was kind of also let me say challenge between two different facades, right? People that were more into seeing it as adopters, so embracing the opportunities, and others being skeptical and thinking this would have been a replacement, right? So my whole initial approach was trying to test this technology, and Stefan Sagmeister was featuring my work, my initial exploration in the context of typography, and then I got basically involved in many other conversations all around the interplay between art and artificial intelligence, how artificial intelligence could shape the new frontier of typography, and all around this type of dualism. So let's start from the beginning. Why did I start to use this generative AI? I was asked to work on a movie title for a movie that is currently on Netflix from a friend called Andrea De Sica and produced by Wonder Bros and Vivo Film. And in order to do that, I was, creating what you see here in motion in my house with ferrofluids. So I was basically using these liquids and UV color and UV light to basically, records some type of possible ambience visual that could be used in the background of the credit entrance as well as the closing title. Is to say that all those elements were basically for me something truly important to shape also the overall logo title, right? And now you can apply on top of typography or even create the typography itself using the Petri dish and basically, you know, creating something that is a bit more alive in terms of typographic artifact, right? So looking at this and seeing the wonder of AI, I was thinking, okay, let me see how I can reproduce with this technology something that is resembling, you know, all the work done with these, you know, liquids. And so I started my exploration in defining some type of living organism. And as you can see, the beginning of these typography attempts were really, you know, not fully defined. So there was some hints here and there of what a letter can be. Letter is a component, right, of typography, technology of language, but nothing was fully defined because the machine, the AI, was not trained to do so. And so the more I've started, you know, to feed the machine with prompts and with, you know, inspirational material, the more I started to get results that were more in line with, you know, letter shape. And the more I was, you know, trying to achieve results towards the meaning of perfection, when perfection is something that is truly legible, the more instead I fell in love with what I called aesthetics imperfections. As we think about, you know, our world, everything around us is imperfect. There is no perfection. Imperfection is something that is coming from nature, right? It's always finding a way to shape anything and finding, you know, the right balance between being able to stay in a context. And I think imperfections are a sign of uniqueness, and we should celebrate those imperfections. And so the more I kept, you know, working, the more, as you can see, result where, let me say, coming closer to what can be seen as a letter and is legible, and ultimately is also resembling what, you know, was my beginning point in terms of, you know, the starting of the exploration. Here to show some, you know, initial variety of ferrofluid and letter shape. And I think, you know, the beauty here is that those imperfections are basically in the composition of the letter, right? That is not truly, in certain case, fully defined, but yet in terms of cognitive approach, you can read it, right? And it's something that gives also this sense of movement, of evolution, of something that is growing, right? And is constantly evolving. So the purpose of my initial exploration was to celebrate imperfection in the context of typography or lettering that is kissing the rigor and the roots of the function towards much more aesthetic representation. What does it mean? If we think about typography that is going to break the barrier of the container, for instance, a screen, or for instance, a piece of paper, we will enter a different domain, like, you know, augmented reality, virtual reality, in which maybe there is something more, right, in terms of evolution that typography can bring on the table. Imagine something that is constantly moving, how you combine generative design and artificial intelligence to have something that is constantly in motion. How brands could basically have different type of approaches according to markets, and how the same entity can evolve, you know, constantly in different locations, yet being coherent. So I started to explore all these concepts, obviously with contamination. I think in the 65, Yves Saint Laurent created the first collection that was called Mondrian, in which he was basically taking Mondrian art and applying it in the context of fashion. And this was something really interesting, right, back in the days. Now that AI has been approaching the market, everyone is thinking, you are taking things from other, you are, you know, using them without a consent. I think as everything, where you take inspiration and the way you approach it in decontextualizing it, it's a way of, you know, providing new opportunities for art or design to be developed, right? It's like the foundation for transversal creativity. And I think AI in this moment is providing the opportunity to democratize creativity in a way you connect different disciplines. In the artwork, you can basically um, visualize. And so I've been starting my contamination of exploration with preferences of style alike. So my father was a doctor. I love the anatomy of the human body. I love sculpture and concrete as I'm living in Berlin. And when you connect them all, you can see something that starts to become really interesting, right? That maybe even our mind could not think about, right? In the way they are developed. Because I think the beautiful, connection when playing with artificial intelligence is the ludic game of interpretation. We are playing with the randomness, and the way we inform the randomness and we influence the randomness is delivering the magic in something that is not fully controlled, but can give us, a really wide range of opportunities and visual directions. As you can see here, some other, exploration and really going wild, even in seeing how, something that is truly 3D can then be connected with a much more graphical representation of the letter shapes. And, when you zoom out and you see how many of those variations you can make in such a short time, it's opening up a new opportunity to really focus, in terms of time. So human intuition is always and will always be the driver, but the way we are capable of seeing and exploring really huge amount of direction, now it's becoming really fast. So we will gain back the time to really focus on what we believe will be the right way in which we can deliver much more impact in then the final design we will do as humans, right? So here again to show the carousel of and the wonders that we can achieve, and I think you are already familiar because this is just the beginning of the exploration we made back in the days, and I think you were also doing some of those exploration. Seeing how materials, art, and anatomy can play a role in shaping completely different, as I was showing before, completely different directions. Even when we connect different type of materials, right? This was inspired by lights and Nike ISPA. So you can see something that is becoming much more granular in terms of texture. Is more like about innovative fabrics. And I think the beauty of the deformation of the letter is something truly unique, right? So I started to think about, obviously, as a UX designer, as an interaction designer, how we can define a system out of that. So if we think about the design system, there are all different building blocks. Those building blocks can be applied in the way we establish our dialogue with artificial intelligence. That is the syntax. If you think about the syntax as building blocks, you can have, different elements you combine together to get images, right? You can start providing reference images, you can assign a subject, you can provide attributes, you can apply context, and you can drive specification. By doing that, and even by shuffling, certain of the elements, you give different weights, right? And you control differently the AI, or even you influence differently the whole opportunities of getting, those results. And all this thinking brought me also to, experience and explore something more, that is, what about, speaking the language of the machine? So what can we do in creating even fake codes and using those codes as a way to inform the prompt of the AI, right? How the machine would react. And as you can see on the side, the results are beautiful. So what I'm trying to say is that we should not be sticky on which are the traditional way of interaction. We can be creative also in the way we establish the dialogue. And I will show also later, as part of the book content, how I was, going deeper into this type of exploration. So after contamination, I think one of the other interesting elements is how we can enhance the visual message, as I was saying before. So as you can see, I was also always showing all the different results within Square, right? And as you can see here, you cannot really, or you couldn't back in the days, really achieve having a word in such a format. And I discovered that that's because, the more you change the ratio and the format, the more you give pixel to AI to create the image, right, as a bigger canvas. And so the format was dictating the way the AI was basically shaping results. So when you go on a larger format, you can actually achieve words. As you can see here, it's written body. Body using the shape of the silhouette. It's embracing, the movement of the human body. It's a really strong message that is, visible in its own meaning. When you go into fear, right, even more, is something that is nested into our mind. It's, I think, this exactly this result is actually really going towards, which was exploration, or even virus, right? So what I think is really interesting here when we speak about this aesthetics imperfection is that we were coming in a moment in which AI at the proper style was really supporting, this opportunity to create something that in terms of cognitive representation not fully defined, but our brain can connect it to the world, even if all the data are not fully present and visible. And so when you see all of those, imperfections, sadly, from my point of view, sadly, those imperfections will disappear in the near future, when we talk about artificial intelligence artwork. Because if you see how fast this tool, it's basically, evolving from version 1 in the context of, Midjourney to version 5, it's becoming a mimic of reality. So now do you see things daily? It's becoming a picture. It's not anymore an interpretation. And I think that's something completely wrong, right? We are not trying to find something that is replacing, certain type of activities. Instead, what we could have done before was like really, or yet we can also still do now. And this is, what I keep doing is how we can still find values in something that is truly uniquely a result of artificial intelligence that is visible. It's clearly, imperfect because that's the style we would like to use. And so all this brought me to a question. So how can I time capsule this moment of generative AI unique imperfection on visual artifact? And from that moment, all the idea of, the book came in place. So this book has been developed with Slanted Publisher, and it's an investigation about the delicate interplay between human and artificial intelligence. It's a co-creation partnership where both entities learn, adapt, and evolve in tandem. A more human output as a witness of this fasting, evolving landscape. And I would like to frame, this moment because this has been also something truly, difficult in the whole definition and work on this, projects, graphic projects, because, the world evolving, it's basically framing a technology that is constantly evolving, even while you are writing and working on the book. So how you make sure that this so fast changing technology, it's still, relevant when the book is going to go out, right? Even if it's, testament of something that it's that specific, for that specific moment. So I started to give a name to this AI I was working with, right? In terms of entity, we know technology-wise that Tamagotchi has been teaching us, even if it's something is not human, we have the tendency to, get even an emotion connection, right? The way we bond with technology can become a truly unique, opportunity to develop further. And so I called in the book this assistant Pia, that is the name of my grandmother, and actually it's, personal intelligent assistant. So in the whole book, the content in terms of images and in terms of, part of the text has been co-created with AI. It was the first time I was basically using ChatGPT that back in the days was just, released on the market. So the overall project is showing the process of co-creation without making a stamp if this is something great or not. it's exposing the good, the bad things, it's exposing the process of the project, right? This typographic exploration, and it's giving to people the opportunity to decide whether it's something, good or not, right? And I think we are not still able to understand the potential if it's something that, will be an advantage or not, right? So I will now focus on autonomy and the anatomy of the book in terms of, visual and graphic project done in connection with Slanted. So we have been working together on the overall book definition. As you can see, there is, a core story in the center, right? And while working in user experience and seeing also how, newspaper are basically built, the opportunity on product detail page is to use AI to basically create evolving product description according to the user effort, right? He can make in reading them. So if I'm on the train and I'm browsing, an e-commerce, I maybe don't have a lot of time to go and read all the description. So what I would like to go is something, what I would like to have is something that is, a scannable 1 minute or 1 second, text. I can read, I see if I'm interested. If I'm interested, I can go deeper. And so this is how, the different sizes of typography are basically playing a role within the overall structure. 1 minute scan, I'm interested, I can go 10 minutes reading. I want a deep dive, I can go 1 hour reading. That is the next slide. I'm having some internet issues, I think. Yeah. So 1 hour deep diving. And on top of that, I was also trying, to provide even a different level of engagement that is having side notes as enriching content of the core story, in which basically I was taking the text I was writing, or I was taking, quotes from philosopher, and I was asking to AI the thinking, which would have been a point of view in what I was, feeding her with. And I think this is becoming, a really nice, powerful opportunity to see, the double side of the coin. So the same concept being exposed from two different entities, right? A machine and a human. And even more, adding flashback and flash forward as a way to navigate the overall book. So you can basically interact with the book as a canvas, linking, different part of the story together. So you can jump between different, pages. This is reminding, the way we currently are using, the digital tools such as Apple Mission Control or tabs in the browser. Our focus can jump, from a moment to another in different destinations. And I think what I try to do, in the context of a book that is talking about a technology that is truly digital and artificial, how we can also, connect this multiple storyline and opportunity to jump in between different, contexts. Also, as you can see, the usage of a color is dictating the presence of AI. So every time you see the black labels, it's AI speaking. Every time you see the white in the whole story, is myself writing. And this color story is also embedded on the side. So the powerfulness of AI is giving a really huge amount of results in such a short time. And so what I was doing is, according to the core story, I was feeding AI with, the information and asking for hopes and fear about its own integration in the future. So you can see the black bar that's about fears of AI integration within, the future, and the white one is about hopes. So again, it's about, making even more visible this difference in between the two words and the two, let me say, mindsets of people seeing this technology approaching, their own lives. Obviously, the whole process, especially, in the beginning when I'm touching concept and pillars like time, nature, and evolution, how they connect with AI. I'm exposing the whole conception of the project, right? And the whole visual evolution from the conception of, this ever-evolving organic typography all the way down to its own application in the visual messages. I also loved to expose the redundancy of, the content, right? So if you think about information architecture, you have always the indent, right? In the way you expose the information architecture. And I think this is exposed here when it comes to the redundancy of content, right? So the more you go inside, the more you're basically going down into the specific content, right? And ultimately, also really showing a conversation with AI in which I basically ask how she can suggest to make some unconventional typography and showing the results and comparing them so you can easily see how it's failing, right? This is a meme I took a few days ago of Google integrating AI into the search. And it's a big failure, right? So it's not something reliable. It's something that is far away from being reliable. We should use this tool as a tool, not as a source of truth. And the beauty of this tool for me is an exploration and inspiration instead of, making the job for you. So this is just, asking smoking while pregnant and he's telling, yeah, smoke 2, 3 cigarettes during your pregnancy, or saying, can I make pizza with, I don't know, without too much sauce and cheese, but I want it to be, a thickened sauce. Yes, you can add 1 cup of not toxic glue. And you're like, thank you for telling me I should add something that is not toxic. So you see, for AI, those are just words. There is no experience. There is nothing in the background that is, supporting what we know as humans, right? So don't trust AI. And all of this brought me to a next exploration that is, can I make AI fail? So I was reading a lot about hallucination. And if you remember before when I started all the, the exploration I was doing with the code, right? I started to ask ChatGPT to create with me creatively some codes that AI could not understand. So Morse code or arithmetic codes, or even, I don't know, like many, many of those. And when, you write something and you give a prompt, AI should reply, will reply, must reply anytime, whatever you write, right? But the way she cannot understand truly what you want, it's delivering something that is unexpected, right? In terms of failures. And so sometimes even, typography, it's fading in terms of reality, right? When it comes to those type of results. Obviously, part of this whole exploration is touching how the role of this designer will shift, right, in this co-creation era. And I'm like looking at different type of principles as a rule of application of this tool within our job. Here is just a principle that I find really interesting, that is curated selection over iterations, right? So the quantity of things we can produce, they are not design, right? They are artworks. So we and you guys, especially as visual designers, know in Academy of Visual Art, you will, sorry, visual art in general, you will basically produce images, you will produce digital artwork, you will produce them with such a speed that is crazy, mind-blowing. You will end up having thousands of iterations. And the way we will able to select those is really, will be really a key moment. We'll pass through, seriality to iterations. And I think this is something truly, a truly important concept to take in consideration also for how, in the future archives will be built, and how, searchability of elements in the net will, deliver the let me say, where they're coming from, right? In terms of authorship, in terms of inspiration, and in terms of parenting. The last part of, the book is about showing and visualizing all this co-creation process. And it's truly, a journey in revealing those imperfections about the eye. As you can see, the visual output is taught as something so fast that sometimes as a, the cut of the image is not fully, in the right place, right? So it's resembling this idea of being so quick and fast in the production that even, you know, the way they are basically cut on the page, it's imperfect still. And I am also revealing, you know, the opportunity you have really to be coherent and consistent using different seeds in creating, you know, a consistent alphabet, right? Out of something that seems to be so instead uncontrollable. In terms of revealing the imperfection, I also started to use, you know, my own hand to basically create letter shape that are, let me say, as a joke, handmade. You know, AI has been always having a limitation that is the preciseness to represent the human hand due its own complexity. And there is this amazing meme of, you know, AI will make art and design obsolete and AI accepting the job. So when I speak about imperfection, I was really going down in all different levels that makes this tool imperfect, because for me, this is the beauty, right? Another opportunity is to reveal, as I was saying before, the contamination. And for me, contamination, when we think about nature, it's about crossbreeding. So how you can take different life forms and how you can combine them together into different, let me say, animals, right? Yet connected to the topography. And I felt being kind of Frankenstein while doing that. So it was really, you know, inspiring and nice in showing, you know, those variety of opportunities, like matching and mixing up animals. And as you can see here, this was like 1,855 images that were created to, you know, pick 6 of them to be placed within the book, right? 6 artworks. Again, when talking about the process, what I do in my work with AI, it's not writing a prompt and adding an image. I use version number 1 of Midjourney, for instance, to create mood images. Then I use those mood images to inform version 2 on how can build a new image. And then from this image from version 2, I combine it or blend it with another image. Then from the other image, I use another tool. So it's really a lot of different steps to arrive to those results. It's not just writing, you know, something and getting a result, right? So I think the beauty here is also understanding how the workflow is becoming non-linear, how you can have different, you know, the need of combining different versions of the algorithm to train your own models and to still combine different tools together to get what you want. The last part of the book is about inspiring conversations, and those inspiring conversations are, you know, with all different professionals I've been working for and with in the context of 3 core pillars. So how AI can support accessibility. I think we will pass from, you know, personalized experiences to unique experiences, and accessibility is going to play a major role in there, right? Multimodal experiences, or even just when you think about accessibility, we try always to match some standard, right? But each person is unique in the way she's, you know, experiencing those disabilities. And so we can really use this technology to instead deliver something that is truly unique according to the individual, as well as processes. So how AI can support different processes when it comes to corporate product development, design thinking, and brand. As I was mentioning before, imagining a brand that is constantly evolving yet being coherent with, you know, their own approach, guidelines, and positioning. So I wanted to show you also some latest exploration when it comes to, you know, giving a bit more life to those AI artworks. And I am using different type of tools to do so. So sometimes it's, you know, using Mid-Journey, then moving them into ControlNet, creating illusions. Some other time is using Firefly and delivering, a balance between structure and input. Some other time is using Touch Designer, integrating the APIs from Stream Diffusion and creating, real-time AI based on sound input and frequencies. And so that's, just some high candy of some of the latest work that were done for Turing Graphic Days, exploring again those imperfections and embracing them into, this type of videos. I will show you a bit of this. Here there is also the usage of another tool that I suggest you to use if you never. It's called Crea. And I think it's pretty nice because it's providing, the opportunity to define different keyframes and make, animation in between. So it's providing a bit more opportunity to control the eye because on video it's pretty difficult. And sometimes you have to wait a lot of time that is rendering, right? Conf UI and anything else. While instead, I think this is providing a quick, glanceable outputs as a overall direction you want to take, and then you can experience more and train your own models. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the talk. It was pretty inspiring. It was pretty inspiring.
I think it was also quite a lot of stuff to digest in such a short time.
Yes, I can hear myself speaking. Yes, I hear myself. I'm not pretty sure what is happening. Okay, so maybe it's fixed now. Okay, so I will start with my own question, and then maybe we will have more in the chat. Because I actually recognize that you use the term tool and the co-creator interchangeably for the way you address the AI that you're working with. I think, I mean, I'm more comfortable if I can distinguish between these two. The tool, I think, is something that is not really a decision maker. It's more something that is submissive of what you want to do. And the co-creator, on the other hand, is more of someone who is making decisions as well. So I want to know what your instance is when you are working with the AI, and if that view has changed throughout your work and throughout the time.
Thank you. Valuable. So thank you for the question. I think it's really interesting completely. I think I do agree with you in, definition of the words. For me, co-creator in my context is more saying that ultimately it's a new type of tool. It's a tool that needs input to create output, right? It's not a decision maker in the context I work for. If we think about AI on several other, let me say, application, it might become a decision maker. In this moment, for me, it's more a co-creator because it's interpreting, your direction, and ultimately is influencing in certain degrees the results, right? But that's the way you can get inspired out of result you were directing, right? Being a director in certain degrees, it's empowering also other people, right? You are empowering this regards machine, feeding back to you on possible, let me say, direction that you can, explore more. And I think, this, so it's beautiful, the connection between the two words. It's a new tool, right? That it's becoming more as an assistant in certain degrees, right? Depends on how we are basically using it.
So it is safe to say that it is a kind of a species that is evolving on its own. I think we are trying to adjust ourselves and the way that we approach them.
Well, I wanted to, I was saying, you know, I think it's not as, how to say, from my point of view, from my experience, right? I'm not talking as I am, you know, the master. I would say that we are still shaping, right? This technology now is something that we are shaping, right? It's something that is resembling us in terms of, you know, the way it's shaped, right? Neural networks is something we have inside of us. It's a technology that is becoming always more biological, right? I think this is exactly the trick. It's not us changing according to the AI. We should be influencing the way this is shaped. When we talk about models, right, and with those models can evolve, right, according to the input of the user, it's still us creating them. It's still our input creating those, right? Then there is a really interesting, you know, conversation there about model collapse, right? That seems in the future the AI will use its own content to keep, you know, generating and learning, and there will be a collapse of all of this, right? But I think we are still in a phase of, let me say, conflict in which we are not really still able to define how those new scenarios can take place and which will be our response. So I think that's the beauty of seeing how this whole technology is basically evolving and how we can help shaping the correct integration, evolution through governance and regulation and ethical approach in the usage.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting point of view when you see that something like that eventually we have the control over, like we can take it back if we want to, although it seems like a really a really controversial point of view. But there was something else that I wanted to address. I think that this is a very interesting topic for me. I have been using a Midjourney since the moment that it was launched. I was really curious about it. I think we are entering an era that the copyright, the whole thing for you is the prompt that you write. So it was pretty interesting to me to see you actually talked about the way that you write it, and you have a formula, like a syntax, basically, for the way that you write your prompt. I want to know what is your stance on what the copyright exactly mean in this era in general. If you want to go deeper into the topic, I would like to hear your opinion.
Yeah, from my point of view, the copyright is still, you know, in the context of AI, something that is not yet, I mean, there is a lot of regulation going in that direction, right? For me as a user, it's the way you use data to train the models, right? And this is not about the users. This is about corporates that are, you know, creating their own products, right? As Midjourney, for instance, is one example. So they should be regulated in certain degrees on which are the data they use to train, right, those machines. From our side, I think it's more our responsibility to make sure that what we use to feed the AI, its images produced by AI and not something we take, you know, from other people without having their own consents, because ultimately this is something that cannot be done from my perception, even using typography, right, or fonts. That's not something that you do, right? So copyright and ethical approach and ethical usage for me are together. I think within the future, we will go more into a business opportunity as music did back in the days, if you think about sampling, right? Because I think that's, I'm not a businessman. This is just my, you know, point of view. I think we might go in that direction. On the other side, I also think that it's important always to define which is a replica and which is instead an inspiration, right? In what you build and what you create.
Yeah, pretty interesting anyways. As we are actually entering this era where it is getting more and more, as you mentioned, real, the references to the imagery are getting more and more obvious, obviously, and it is kind of, I can say safely, hard to distinguish what is actually a real photo or AI generated. I think this idea of copywriting and everything would be a little bit more, I would say, really hard to grasp actually what is actually happening, because anyways, like they are taking the data from the internet, from everything that is online. So it is kind of really a complicated issue anyways. I would like to know, are you really like, because you mentioned as why you did the book, the reason behind it, it was for you to capture this moment, capture this aesthetic that is being, provided by the AI at this moment, specific time. So I want to know, is that an archival project? Are you seeing yourself like, doing this from time to time to just keep up with the aesthetic that is going on? Or was this more of a like a, I don't know, maybe a glimpse and it's gone now?
So I go back 1 second to what you were saying before answering this question on copyright and on photography and everything else. Again, I feel even in there you will have the opportunity to use other tools to recognize whether an image is created through AI or not, right? When it comes to this idea that the AI is scanning the internet and using content on internet, that's not exactly true. You need to train the AI with models, with data sets, right? Cannot access the whole internet and just taking all the things there, right? This is, I think, a misunderstanding on how the technology work. So you have data set, you take those data sets, you feed the data set, they should be public, and they also should be really curated in terms of the quality of what you feed the AI with. Otherwise, it's just coming out with results that are not resembling what you write. And in the context of prompts, I think being a prompt engineer is one thing. I'm not, honestly, and I'm not interested in do so. I was just interested in the results you can achieve in even faking the prompts with fake codes and anything else. And I think this is something that will die pretty soon. Imagine another scenario, just out of that. Imagine how this tool can be powerful when you are doing brainstorming together with 4 people in a room, and the way you speak get recognized, taking the core keywords of what you say, and it's visualizing in real time a mood board, right? So if we stop focusing on being scared about technology, and we see how this technology can change different ways in which we work, can be truly an amplifier. If you think about photography back in the days, when camera became mass market, all the painters told, you press a button and our job is done. You get the picture. Then what happened? Painters became more conceptual. Photography has been opening up a lot of opportunities to see art in different ways, right? So every technological acceleration is delivering fear. I am also scared about this, right? I have kids. I also want to think about a future in which everything is not automated and they don't use their mind. But I think, let's not be so dramatic about, the future, and let's try instead to understand which are the quick wins in using this tool and how we can get back, our time to focus on something different. And sorry if I went so long on that.
No, I really enjoy when you talk about it. For example, like I think we are definitely scared of the unknown, like whatever that is not really, clear to us, what will be the direction in the future. So I think what you actually mentioned was really interesting to me because like I remember this TED Talk with the person who was actually in the team for ChatGPT and was like trying to make the audience understand that it is not to be feared, it is to be actually embraced and looked at as a new possibility, like any other possibilities that we had, for example, like when internet first came along, or for example, as you mentioned, camera. Okay, someone in the chat asked, I would like to hear the name again for the animation program, please. Animation program. Actually, I was searching for such a software today. So it would be great if you can have the software name from you.
Or you can use there are several, right? So the latest one I think is really interesting is called Crea.ai. They're basically providing the opportunity to create video of 10 seconds out of storyboard. If you want to be a bit more nerd, you can go and download Comfy UI. That is also really interesting. But it takes a bit more time to render. You can use Google Colapse as well. There are several online you can find in search, and it's basically running a program on your machine, and according to prompt, not images, you can define the video. Or the latest one I wanted to suggest that I think is really, really interesting. If you use Touch Designers, you can download a plugin for Stream Diffusion, and you can run real-time AI generation based on sound inputs, letter shape, and whatever else.
As for the last question, I want to know what your opinion is on this. I think it's fairly new, the video generators. Like, have you used any of them?
Yeah, I was saying just before, it's this Crea.ai is something that I was using. You did the video generator, right? And they're not
more in terms of like storyline, not just GIF imagery. Like I think that was here for a long time anyways, but like because I saw a lot of like videos actually like having storyline being released. So I want to know like if you have any ideas about them.
That's what I was talking about. It's called Crea.ai. You can do the storyline on that one. So you basically have a storyboard. You can connect different, images, writing a prompt in conjunction and having, something out of that. Now there is this Sora that will be released pretty soon, it seems, but there is no yet access. I honestly think also there, when you start providing images as a reference, I think it's not really what I like about, this tool. I think you lose kind of the magic. You put some images and then it's like, combining them together. I think it's always about what you want to achieve and finding the right tool to do so, right? So back in the days, there was Runway. Runway had a machine learning laboratory in which you could, add your data and create your own video, and that was pretty cool. But now, as this technology is becoming much more mass market, they are basically removing this type of bit more nerdy feature.
Okay, thank you so much. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. It was pretty interesting having you. I hope we get to see more of your works. And I thank you again and wish you a really nice weekend, I guess.